Growing up, I found in my family, we used humor to cope. Humor is a tool that you can use to process information. It's a filter that you see the world through. And so it doesn't minimize what's happening to you. It doesn't minimize how you feel about what's happening, but it helps you cope with the information that's coming in. And so that's how we've always used humor in my home.
Can you give a specific example growing up of when you kind of relied on humor to get you through a tough time?
Oh, wow. Well, there was tons of times. I'm trying to think of which time in particular. I know growing up, I always realized that humor was a tool I could use. I mean, whether it was getting away from bullies, whether it was, making my mom laugh so that she wouldn't beat me, whether it was, basically it was always to avoid being done grievous bodily harm. That's what you use humor for.
Yeah.
You go what did they say? A laughing jury is not a hanging jury.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, my life was punctuated by comedy. But trying to think back to one moment is difficult. I do know there was one moment. I was 7 or 6 years old, and I was sent to the principal's office because I was being naughty with a friend, and I went to a Catholic school originally, and the principal was going to give us a spanking, and he brought out like a little rubber piece of, I don't know what it was, and my friend and I had to bend over, and then he proceeded to spank us, which was very formal. I'd never been spanked before, because when you grow up in an African family, you get beaten, you don't get spanked.
Right, skip right to that.
Yeah, so spank, it was very formal, very like on the bum, count them down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then I did the countdown while he was doing it, because he did my friend first, 5 spanks, and 5. And so when he came to me, then I was 5, 4, 3. And then my friend laughed, and then I laughed, and then the guy was like, "It's not funny, it's not funny." And then he just couldn't do it anymore. He must have thought I was like a creep.
Right.
He's enjoying it.
Sadomasochistic.
Yeah, if you enjoy it, then it's not fun.
You're getting the fun out of it for this poor guy that just wanted to hurt you.
Exactly.
Think of him, Trevor.
I felt bad.
Where did your sense of humor come from in terms of your family? Do you have a similar sensibility from your mom?
Oh yeah, definitely. My sense of humor came from my mom. My sense of humor came from my granddad. They were the funniest people in my family, by far. My granddad was a wild man, very boisterous, really charming man by the name of Temperance Noah. And he used to walk around in our neighborhood in Soweto, a place called Mediolands, where we grew up. And he would walk around uttering random English phrases just because he knew most people that lived near him couldn't speak English. But he didn't know what they meant, he just knew how to say them. Right. So someone would greet him and then he'd be like, "Good afternoon, remember that today is a day that is not promised, but we must not forsake our future as we see fit." And I'd be like, "What does that mean?" He's like, "It doesn't matter. It
sounded good."
Exactly.
I want to talk to you about the way you connect with audiences, because as a host of a show like The Daily Show, your background is primarily from stand-up, and you have a few kind of masters to serve when you're hosting a show like that. You have to connect with the guest, you have to connect with the studio audience in the studio, and maybe most importantly, you need to connect through that lens,
definitely,
the audience at home. Are there conflicts there? Is stand-up what's serving you well? Give me a sense of sort of where your head's at in terms of who are you trying to connect with when you're doing your show?
I find it's trying to create a balance. So you're trying to be in a space where you're creating a show that essentially is for the home viewer, but what you're trying to do is bring the home viewer into the space where the show was made.
Right.
And so it's trying to communicate with somebody that's not there, and yet at the same time they are. It's trying to almost do what you do on FaceTime or Skype with the family when one person is not there, you're trying to have a hangout. And using stand-up, I can communicate with my audience, but getting the message to the home viewer is the most important thing, and finding that balance is what makes it a challenging format. But what's great is stand-up is all about communicating.
Yep.
And then if you build a relationship with the person at home and you can picture who they are, which I always try and do, then I find it's easy to communicate with people, on both planes.
I read an interview with you recently where you talked about, you said, quote, "I'm not selling you anger." You were talking about wanting to create a connection with everybody, with your audience as we were talking. And I find it strikes me also like, you interview people whose politics you don't agree with.
Yes.
Tommy Lahren, et cetera. And that interview got a lot of press. Is it important for you to kind of reach across to an audience that doesn't necessarily agree with you politically to find moments of connection?
Well, not necessarily. You know, it all depends. What you get out of an interview, you cannot determine at the beginning of an interview. Oftentimes, you go in, and when you come out on the other end, you find you've gotten something that you didn't anticipate. Sometimes I find bringing someone from the other side, whatever it may be, whether it's the political spectrum or just from a world that you're not familiar with, is really bringing somebody in to help you refine your point of view or help you challenge yourself. Because if you spend too much time in your own world, you only know what you know and you believe it and you reinforce that. When you meet someone who doesn't agree with you, they force you to challenge your beliefs. And in the challenge comes the galvanizing of ideas, I find. And that's what I appreciate. That's why I'll engage with somebody I don't agree with. I don't think I'll change everyone I meet. I'm not trying to persuade everyone I have a conversation
It's making
with.
you sharper as much as it is.
Yeah, but it's like it also pokes holes in my arguments where I walk away going, okay, why do I believe that?
Yeah.
Why do I say that? Can I make that stronger? Can I go and read up, or can I reinforce what I believe? Or is it a view that I have to now question as a whole because I'm just parroting something that other people have said?
Did your job change the day after the U.S. election, you think?
Oh, yeah.
How so?
Well, I think, as I would say, my friends, shit got real, essentially. Because before that, there was a general sense of arrogance, maybe, for many people watching the U.S. election. There was a feeling of it's all a foregone conclusion. It almost felt like it was just, painting by numbers.
Right. There's an inevitability to what was going to happen.
Yes, the joy of the race, but the truth is we know how it's going to end. It's inevitable. And after Donald Trump won, you could feel a shift in how people perceived politics. You could feel a shift in how people perceived the future of the United States and even the world. And at that point, I realized for myself, now there was a purpose, not just for myself, but for the show, to inhabit a space where we would be examining, probing, and questioning the world that we were now living in.